Hi, my name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. It's November 2nd, 2022, and this is Ben and Barry on football.
What's up out there, everybody? This is Ben Dickerson. I'm your co-host. Quick fantasy note on the bye this week: the Cleveland Browns, the Dallas Cowboys, the Denver Broncos, the New York Giants, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the San Francisco 49ers. So last weekend, we only had 2 teams on the bye. This weekend, we have 6 teams on the bye. I don't know how they came up with that, but I'm sure it works out mathematically.
Yeah, when I did the Bias Plus on it, and I got to 13 games, and I'm like, okay, what am I missing? Something's weird here. 13,
Right.
you know, and so but then I looked up and it's 6 teams on the bye, including yours and mine. I thought
Right.
was a little weird in and of itself.
I need a week off.
You, Jiminy Christmas. No, now they're talking about should the Niners get Odell, and the coach is like, well, hey, he's a great player, he's and then he turns around and trades Jeff Wilson, which that was number 22. So I always all the Niners number 22, since that was my son's number, I kind of pick up on, and he was good. I can't imagine having Mostert come back, McCaffrey, Wilson.
Why would Mostert come back?
Not who's out sick? Mitchell.
Oh, Elijah Mitchell.
Have Mitchell come back.
Right.
And you still got, and I always forget his last name. The other guy, I think his name is like St. Pierre or something like that. Nice running back. Got all the characteristics, of someone that can really, again, remember we looked at the Madden, and you see great speed, great this, great strength, great this, awareness kind of low, rookie or maybe first, second year person. So, that's always a bit questionable, but that would be, as far as I'm concerned, a killer backfield. You know what I mean? With depth. And my concern about McCaffrey, injuries, So if McCaffrey goes down, we will still have 3 strong and be able to run pretty much anything we want to run. McCaffrey, though, brings another element now that he's throwing the ball. They're like the Saints all what's his name? Taysom Hill. He put this guy out there, So it's a lot of crazy stuff. So Ben, we're definitely out of the second preseason, which was the first 4 games. We limited it to the first 4 games. We're going into the middle of the season now, in week 9 coming up out of an 18-week season. I have some additional numbers that I have available, for the conversation, but it's just so instructive to just look at who's where at the halftime point. So we're going to have that with the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings. And then we're going to look at those rankings and the matchups. And that's where we have the Bias Plus reports. And then we got some crazy commentary, a lot of news. I mean, just on the field happening stuff going on, and we might want to just talk a little bit about that at the end of the show. So everybody, stay tuned, hang in there with us. We're going to kick this off with the numbers. So Benny, in the Net Point Power Rankings, the first thing I do a lot of times is, I do it a little more now than what I used to in the beginning. But I just look at your top 5 in net points, and I just let everybody kind of know who's where. So these are the helmets for the top 5. And as you can see, you got Buffalo, you got Philadelphia, you got Kansas City, Dallas. I'm surprised. And your boy Kirk Cousins coming in 5th with the Minnesota Vikings. So there's your top 5 in net points Um, 11.1 for excuse me, 15 even for Buffalo, 11.1 for Philly, 7.3 for Kansas City, 6.3 for Dallas, and 4.1 for Minnesota. My Niners fall just outside the top five, but interesting group in your top five there. What do you say?
Well, the number one thing I like about those 5 teams is they can all put points on board, every single one of them. And at least 4 of them have a pretty steady, reliable to borderline great defense. The only one that I would say doesn't would be the Kansas City Chiefs, which I've mentioned several times. However, I like to give credit where credit is due. They have been playing much better of late.
Hey, you sure right about that. And we'll see that in the numbers as we look across the realm of the numbers that we focus in on. The 2 differential numbers, net points or win margin, however you want to look at it, average net points and average turnover differential, which can go from positive to negative, and at any one time, half the league is in the negative. So if you smell something, you know what part of the league it's generally coming from. It's not smelling right. But then we have basically it's all about the points. That's what makes the difference. That's what wins the game. Average points for, average points against. That's how we rank offenses and defenses here on Ben and Barry and football with the Sterling Pro Football net point power rankings. So, all right, let's get started, Benny. All right, there. In our top 10, we already talked about the top 5, Buffalo, Philly, KC, Dallas, and Minnesota. The top 10 in net points is rounded out, Benny. San Francisco, Baltimore, Cincinnati, the Jets, and Jacksonville still hanging in there, living off those first few games. But that takes us from a range of 3.6 down to 1.8. 3.6, 3.1, 2.8, and 2.1, respectively. Jacksonville finishes out the top 10 in average net points. That's win margin. So that is to say, on average, Jacksonville has won their games by an average of 1.8 points. Long story short, I gotta look, Benny. Did Jacksonville win this past weekend?
No, they did not.
Okay, well that then they really scored it up in those first couple games that they won.
Yeah, basically it was the first 2. And they do still score points. I mean, teams aren't crushing them, but I would say their average net point number has continuously dropped just a little bit each week, but they're still good enough to hold on to the number 10 spot.
Well, Benny, I told you I'd have a couple extra stats for you. Last 3 weeks, Jacksonville average net points minus 5.7.
There you go.
Yeah. There you go right there. Let's look at the scoring here. Your scoring leader, Kansas City Chiefs, scoring 31.9 points per game. Oh, man. Buffalo in second place, scoring 29. Philly right behind them in third place, scoring 28. Seattle, Benny.
Geno, baby.
Geno got the intriguing game of the week last week. I had to give him his written apology. 26.3 points per game. Baltimore, they're ahead. Geno's ahead of Lamar. Okay. Now, if Lamar gets paid, what's Geno going to ask for?
Dude, I'm telling you, it's quarterback salaries are going to be way out of pocket.
I had a conversation.
And it's going to affect everybody.
I had a conversation with our friend Mark Russell. We were talking about the franchise tags,
right,
and what they are versus what they look like they're going to be. And when I looked up franchise tag just as of right now, it seemed like it was in about the $29 million range. But when I looked up the average yearly payout to the top 5 quarterbacks, it was between like 50 million and 40 million. So I don't know
Exactly.
how they're doing 29 right now, but the franchise tag that's coming up,
I think that 29 is based on the 32 starters. But the when you tag a particular player, they only take the top 5 salaries into account. So Lamar is looking at 45 if in fact they tag him.
Easy. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And the cap's going up.
Yep.
Holy mackerel, Andy. So Atlanta's coming in 6th place in scoring, tied with Cleveland at 25. If you can put up 25 points a game, if you got a defense like with a rusher like Cleveland has, for example, I know you'll talk a little bit about that game. Cleveland had with the Bengals. New Orleans coming in at 24.9, Detroit at 24.7, tied with Minnesota at 24.7. There's something strange about that to me. That's the same division. That's two teams that one team looks like it's about to fall off the rails, and the other one looks like they're trying to really make it out there. And with some interesting pickups, for example, and they're tied at 24.7 points per game in terms of their scoring. Now, what makes the difference? Points against defense. Buffalo is number 1 right there. Denver's number 2. Dallas is number 3. So that's 14 points per game that Buffalo. They're giving up 2 touchdowns. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. You scored 2. And then that's the thing, because the teams that are right now, I think Vegas is giving the best odds for the 2 teams to be in the Super Bowl to be Buffalo and Philadelphia.
Okay.
So that's interesting right there. Denver was 16.5, Dallas 16.6, Philly 16.9. So just under 17 points per game for Denver, Dallas, and Philly. That's, again, 2 in the same division there at 0.3 points apart. San Francisco fills out the 5th spot in scoring and at 18.4 points per game. That really got helped by the score fest they had last week against the Rams. I know you'll talk about that. Tampa Bay, 18.9 points per game. When talk to me when you get to this game about Tom Brady and how they're still in the top 10 in scoring, and people like ready to throw dirt on this team, But then your boy's coming right in 7th. Danny Dimes hanging with Tom Brady. Danny Dimes coming in at 19.6 points per game, tied with the Colts. That's an interesting scenario right there. Tennessee at 19.7 and Jacksonville at 19.8 points per game. So Jacksonville is not in the top 10 in offense, but they are in defense. Am I right there? Yeah, I don't see them.
Yep.
All right, let's just look at turnover differential, and then you can throw your piece on it. Philly in number 1 place at +2. And again, this can go positive and negative. These are all positive. And for the most part, down to a ranking of 10, they're all about less than a point more or less. Minnesota, Dallas, Baltimore, Houston, Arizona, Seattle, Tennessee, Buffalo, and the Chargers, range from 0.9 to 0.3 average turnover differential. That means that they're taking the ball away a little bit more, just a little bit more than the other team. Sometimes it's a game of inches. That little bit more might just be enough, especially if it turns into 6, like we saw happen with Dallas. Look at the points Dallas scored. I'm surprised As a matter of fact, after they put up the big numbers that they put up, that they didn't make it into the top 10 in scoring for
Who,
Dallas.
Dallas?
Yeah, yeah. They put up 49.
Yeah, I don't. I'm sure when you go to the next page, 11 through whatever, they'll pop up there pretty high up, close to 11, I would suspect.
Wrap this up for us.
Well, what you're seeing here, especially if you look at the average net points, is the cream is beginning to rise to the top. The pretenders are beginning to fall. This past weekend, a lot of teams exposed themselves as maybe not necessarily being as good as we thought they were going to be. One of them is still in the top 10, and I believe that that's Cincinnati. Now, this is just my opinion here, okay? But I don't think Cincinnati belongs in the top 10, and I don't think they're going to be able to hang in there. When you look at points for, obviously, the teams that most people with the eye test would originally say, or would most likely say are the toughest teams, are these top teams in the average points for, with Seattle being a bit of a surprise and Atlanta being a bit of a surprise. Both of whom are doing it differently. Seattle doing it with a pretty good run game and a surprising rookie holding things down and living off of Geno Smith at quarterback, a guy that we both didn't think was going to be able to, fill the void of Russell Wilson leaving Seattle. And Atlanta, whose ground game they fell off a couple of times, but for the most part, if you don't prepare for Atlanta's ground game, they can upset you anytime. So that's important too. Average points against is where you will find why there are certain teams that are real high in points for, but aren't high in average net points. And that's because their points against numbers are going to be low. And turnover differential, of course, Philadelphia averaging 2 more turnovers or 2 more takeaways than giveaways. I think that's actually, you might say 2 is a low number. That's superior as far as I'm concerned. Those teams at 0.9 and 0.8 also, to me, you round that up to 1 per game. I would consider that to be superior.
Okay, they're in the top 5. That's 1 through 4 right there. You got a tie, a 3-place tie at 0.4. That's Houston, Arizona, and Seattle. So yeah. The thing about Cleveland that I do want to mention is, again, that's with the backup quarterback, right?
Yes, and it was confirmed today that Deshaun Watson is on pace to start week 13. And word out of Cleveland is, as soon as week 13 gets here, Jacoby Brissett will hit the bench and Deshaun will start. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
No ifs, ands, or buts. Wow. That's newsflash for me, man. So, hey, newsflash, Benny, I hear you. Say that one more time.
Deshaun Watson will start for the Cleveland Browns in week 13. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Thank you, Jacoby. You've done a good job. Peace out.
13, week 13. I just have to let that ring through my head a little bit. All right. Well, your average net points between 11 and 20. You got your Patriots, you got Seattle, you got the Giants, you got Cleveland, and you got New Orleans. That's 11 through 15. That's 1.8, 1.4, 0.8, and 0.1 positive. New Orleans is negative 0.1. So that begins the negative portion of the teams. And as I always say, half the teams are negative at any point, or at every point. Maybe I can put it that way. And then you have from New Orleans, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, Tennessee, Denver, and the Raiders, going from again, New Orleans at negative 0.1, negative 0.6, tied for Atlanta and Tampa Bay. Negative 0.9 for Tennessee, negative 1.4 for Denver, and negative 1.6 for the Raiders. So that means they're losing, and they're losing by small margins, with Vegas being 1.5 points on average. So there you go. Now, in your 11 through 20 offensive, your scorers, fundamentally, we're in the 23 point per game range down to about 21.5. This is your neighborhood here, your 23 to 21 average points per game neighborhood of the Chargers, Vegas, Cincinnati, Dallas. And again, not sure, I know that when Cooper Rush was there, they had the one loss, and then Cooper Rush basically was not scoring a lot, but he was winning. So that's the only thing I'm thinking. With 9 games, that 49 points got just sort of averaged in. And it might, as a matter of fact, I need to find out what they were last week. Let me see something. Well, here you go. Average net points for the last 3 weeks for Dallas was 9 plus 9.7. Dallas seems to score less in away games. They're averaging net points of 3 plus 3.3 in away games. So Dallas, Arizona, Miami, New England, San Francisco, the Jets, and Jacksonville rounding out number 20. So that's the neighborhood, that group right there. And like Ben was saying, this is where the pretenders get separated. The team that can get their act together and supercharge their results. And the whole thing that we're going to talk about a little bit later, Benny, is the closing of the free agency yesterday, November 1st, 4 p.m., and all the trades and the things that happened. So a number of these teams have been altered. There's been some additions that can have no effect to a synergistic effect, and these teams can make some serious moves. I'll just throw Miami's name because they had at least 2 serious free agency moves. And defensive, there's your Jets in the 11th. Baltimore is in 20th. So that's a range of 19.9 to 22.9. What's that, about a 3 points per average there? So you got the Jets, the Patriots, the Bengals, the Vikings, Washington, Green Bay, Houston, the Rams, Chicago, and in 20th place, Baltimore. So
generally speaking, the New York Jets and the Washington Commanders have been playing overall better defense than the Baltimore Ravens. And the Green Bay Packers, who I was reminded the other day have 6 first-round draft picks on their defense.
The Packers are probably the one team, and all the news is saying it about how they really didn't make any moves. But they're probably the one team that if they're one thing that they change, one thing that they get better on, and that's just simply catching the football. Things could move in a whole different direction for these guys. They're not catching it. They're dropping wide open balls, and they've got the highlight misses still going on. And also that the line needs to, they need to work that thing a little bit better because they beating the hell up out of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers starting to look like Tom Brady back there, getting sacked. But Green Bay is only giving up 21.6 points per game. Then you got Houston, the Rams, Chicago, and Baltimore. And Baltimore in 20th place is a scary sight if they have Super Bowl aspirations. I think any team that has Super Bowl aspirations really don't want to be in that area. And your turnover differential from 11 through 20. 20 is your first negative turnover differential. Your mid-range at 0 Breaking even is your Jets in New England, Kansas City, Denver, and Cincinnati, which takes you from 15 through 19. Then the other ones are a fraction, 0.1, 0.1 for Atlanta and Chicago, and 0.3 for Tampa Bay. And your Giants on the positive at 0.3 average turnover differential. So what do you like about that?
Well, the turnover differential in this group, I would say, is probably negligible, considering Tampa, Giants, Atlanta, and Chicago are 0.3 to 0.1, which pretty much rounds back to a 0. And then you got a string of teams that are all sitting at 0. So they're all breaking even. Some of the teams that were still high in average net points or were still high in average points for, but not high in average net points. This tells you why when you look at points against, they're having trouble keeping other teams out of the end zone, and that's what's pulling them down a little bit. But of course, anytime you're high in average net points, that gives you the ability to win games, win tight games, win shootouts, because any given Sunday, somebody can turn the ball over and give you that extra offensive series that ends up being the difference in a win and a loss, or can make that critical error at the end of a game that can make the difference between being a win and a loss. So as long as you can score points, you have the ability to win games. Now, if you can't stop anybody, it's going to hurt you. It's going to slow you down for sure, as you will see with the Las Vegas Raiders, who somehow are still sitting at number 12 in average points for, with a terrible defense. That's not going to last. And I don't see it getting better. So we're coming into the second half of the season. You're going to see some drastic changes here in these numbers week by week.
All right, let's look at that bottom group from 21 through 32. All right, let's just knock 32 out, because you got Pittsburgh in last place in both average net points and in scoring in 0.4. They're giving up 9.6, so they're losing by an average of 9.6 points per game. So they're a negative 9.6. They're scoring 15 points per game. That's their average right now.
That ain't going to get it.
That ain't going to get it. If you just look in the next column, you will see Pittsburgh in 24th place. Their defense is allowing 24.6 points per game. There you go, ladies and gentlemen, how we get the average net points. It's the differentials. That's what we deal in. Because, like I tell you all the time, you got to look at both sides of the ledger. On your balance sheet, assets and liabilities, on your income statement, income and expenses. It's just the way it is. It's the Tao of life, the positive.
The Tao of life.
That's what it is. Miami is minus 1.8, Benny. Chicago, minus 3.3. Arizona, Carolina, Green Bay, and Indianapolis. All at minus 3.5. So if I looked at that group right there, 3.5, Arizona, Carolina, Green Bay, and Indianapolis, and I just look at the quarterback, I'm going, well, the team with the best quarterback, and that includes Kyler, would be still Green Bay. So,
and yeah, and look where they are.
Yeah, look where they are. Look where they are. That's for sure. And we already said that their defense was actually playing pretty well. So if you go one over to the next column and number 26, you will see in Green Bay, they're only scoring 18.1 points per game.
Right, which actually isn't horrible. I'm a firm believer in the fact that if you can score 3 touchdowns per game, or somewhere between 18 and 20, 21 points per game, you have a good opportunity to win the game if you don't screw it up. And those are the kind of games that we see these teams that are sitting at number 21 through 26 either win or lose. heartbreakers or they pull it out with late scores. Okay, but they're living on the edge. That's why they're on the minus side of the ledger as far as average net points is concerned. That's not a good place to be.
Yeah. Seattle is in the top 10, I believe, in scoring.
Yes.
But they're in the bottom. They're at 27 in terms of defense. Tied strangely with Vegas and Cleveland. New Orleans is giving up 25 points per game. They're in 27th place.
Yeah, they're a weird team. Some days their defense looks incredible, and other days it looks like they just showed up.
Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh was last in scoring. I don't see them in this. Oh yeah, there they go.
Yeah, they're 24th.
And defense, giving up 24. That they're in that group, that 24.6. Just under 25. New Orleans stopped you at 25, but your 24s, Miami, Kansas City. That's why you don't like Kansas City. 23rd, giving up points. Now, if Kansas, kind of like Green Bay on offense, if Kansas City gets their defensive act together a little bit and gets in that middle group, then they're going to be tough to beat because they are the number one scoring team. Their defense only has to get a bit better, move up about 8.8 rankings levels or something like that. And then all of a sudden, then we putting a squeeze on people. Pittsburgh, Vegas, Cleveland, Seattle, New Orleans, Atlanta, Arizona, the Chargers, and Detroit at 32 round out the bottom group, 21 through 32. And turnover differential, it's all negative. Jacksonville and Vegas at negative 0.3. The Niners, Miami, and Green Bay all tied at negative 0.4. Washington, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, negative 0.5. Detroit and the Rams, negative 0.7. And then Indianapolis at negative 1 and New Orleans at negative 1.1. So there you have it, the rundown, what they've actually produced in terms of their points on average per game, their net points, and well, we used to call them tied, but now we do averages, so it's a tied. Turnover differential, man, makes all the difference right there. So you want to wrap it up for us, Benny?
Yeah, as far as average net points, average points for, and average points against, I'm not super surprised at where anybody is. I will say this, teams that I consider still to be in the running for playoff spots, teams that I still consider to be contenders, such as the San Francisco 49ers and the Miami Dolphins, have got to stop giving the ball away more than they take it away. Both defenses are pretty good. In fact, San Francisco's defense is really good, although we haven't seen how good they can be because of injury. Miami's defense is pretty good. They're not real good, but they're pretty good. But they got to start taking the ball away. If they take the ball away a little bit more, then they'll turn out a couple more wins.
So you're saying turnover differential is the difference? Is that what you're saying?
Turnover differential is the difference for teams like that, yes. It
All right,
doesn't
well,
make a
that wraps
difference
up.
for some of these other teams.
I'm sorry?
I said it doesn't make a difference for teams like Washington, Pittsburgh, Detroit. Doesn't make a difference for them. Nothing can help them.
You're not a fan of what's his name, the new quarterback, Heineke?
I like Heineke.
You like Heineke?
The Commanders are fun to watch. The Commanders are fun to watch, believe me. I thought they should have started Heineke. I never would have made the trade for Wentz.
Oh, I agree with you there, but I hear Chase is about to return, right?
I don't know. I haven't heard his name mentioned in weeks.
I think he's about to make a comeback.
Well, that'll make a difference for the defense. That'll be good.
Big difference for the defense. Okie dokie. That wraps up the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings through week 8 of 2022. right, Benny, ready for the Bias Plus reports for week 9, 2022? So let's kick it off with the Thursday night football game. Benny, this is going to be on Prime. And I don't know how good Prime is. I saw a headline that was saying like it looks like their watch numbers are falling off. But I don't know that to be for sure. That was just a headline that I read. So it'll be interesting to see how that works.
Well, the games haven't been very good.
But not everybody has Prime. I mean,
right. Okay. Yeah, I get it.
Starting there. I mean, I was talking to Mark. Mark is like, well, I don't have Prime. I'm like, okay, well, so not everybody has it. It seems ubiquitous, but it's actually not. But I don't. This doesn't look to be a very competitive matchup. Eagles at Texans, Bias Plus score of 18.1. That's based on average numbers, ladies and gentlemen. You take that. That's 9. If you look for gross numbers, and we've already been through what, 8 games. They multiply that by 8. Like 10 would be 180. So that'd be like just pure gross net points be like favored by 180 points, net points rather. In any event, Eagles are favored at the Texans. Who you got?
So the Eagles have to go down to Houston to play the Texans. Now, I've been very, very impressed with the Eagles so far this season. I can't say it enough. I'm not going to go into any rants about Eagles fans or anything tonight. I'm just going to stick with the team. The Eagles look damn good. Now, I said last week I thought they were the best team in the NFC. I stand by that. But after watching their game against the Steelers, I'm going to say something else. I'm going to say that they're not just good, they're scary good. I'll tell you why. In the previous 7 games, they were real RPO heavy, and quarterback Jalen Hurts, he rushed at least 9 times in 2 games of those last 7, and as many as 17 times in at least one of those games. All the other games after the 2 where he had 9, he rushed at least double-digit times. In this game last week, he barely ran at all. Well, he didn't. He ran only twice, actually. He ran 2 times for 10 yards. They hardly ran any RPOs, and he threw from the pocket like crazy. It's almost like they heard somebody ask, yeah, but can he throw from the pocket? And Coach Sirianni said, hey, Jalen, let's show him. That's what it looked like. And it's funny because I was just talking to somebody comparing how the Giants seem to be trying to run their offense and how similar it looked to the Eagles offense. Now, I'm not comparing the two. I'm talking about the style of play, the RPOs, the quarterback that can run, timely throws, stuff like that. So what do the Eagles do? They completely fool me and come out and put Jalen in the pocket and just go bombs away. Got to be impressed. Now, Houston just doesn't have enough talent. That's all you can pretty much say about them. The Titans rolled into Houston with pretty much only Derrick Henry to bring to the table, and the Texans had no answer for him. So this is an easy one. Take the Eagles on the road.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, Benny. So the first game that is coming up here on Sunday, we have the Bills at the Jets. Another hefty Bias Plus score of 13.2, again, based on average numbers, favors the Buffalo Bills. So the Jets, hey, look, the Jets go from getting a dominant Patriot team to getting a dominant Bill team in their division. And now they got the Dolphins bucking up there, and they've been in the gym. I think they went to see you. I think Miami came to see you to build up some muscle, right?
Well, I'll tell you, the AFC East has changed quite a bit. Used to be dominated by the Patriots, and pretty much nobody else had anything to say. And then lately, it's looked like the Buffalo Bills were going to dominate, and nobody else was going to have anything to say. Sort of kind of the way the NFC East was looking. But now things are changing. Patriots have come down a couple notches, but they're still not dead yet. And the Jets have come up a couple notches. And the Miami Dolphins are really showing some real offensive prowess. So this is a tough division. Division games are always tough. Buffalo is going to have to go, but to MetLife, which is probably a bus ride for them. I'm not going to worry too much about this game, even though the Jets are playing really, really well lately. Tough loss against the Patriots last week, but the Buffalo Bills are far and away much better and should win the game fairly easily. Please take the Buffalo Bills.
Take the Bills. The Bills. All right. Panthers at Bengals. Bias plus score 6.4 favors the Bengals.
Okay. Let's talk about.
We posted the big happening, and I'm just going to talk about it real quick.
Okay.
My man caught the bomb for the Panthers.
Yep.
And took his helmet off.
Yep.
And they hit him with a 15-yard penalty on the extra point, made it like a 40-some yard extra point. Dude misses it, and it looks as if he just screwed it up, screwed up that win. I mean, and to see his face go from the elation of the catch to the degradation, for lack of a better word, of the penalty was just an amazing emotional swing. And then we find out that in reality, he was out of the field of play in the end zone, so it was not a penalty. It was a legal move that he did. He was able to you're able to take your helmet off once you're outside of the field of play and the end zone, which he was. So,
that specifically, did you read the rules specifically?
I listened. They interviewed people from the referees, and he said it was a black guy. He said yeah, he was out of the So he said it really wasn't. You go back and look at it, and he wasn't out because he meant to be out. He just happened to be out when he pulled his helmet off.
Okay, but guess what? He didn't pull his helmet off because he knew he was out.
No, I said that. That's what I just said.
Right.
Because he didn't do it knowledgeably.
Right.
But whether it was knowledgeably or not, he was outside of the field of play. He was out of bounds. So you can do it out of bounds.
Okay.
So
how about just keep your helmet on until you get to the sideline? I think that's I believe that's the spirit of the rule.
Yeah, to be careful. What the spirit of the rule is one thing. The letter of the law, the referee should not have thrown that flag on him. Now, from what I understand, however, there were other players from the Panthers who also took their helmets off, and he was the one that kind of got tagged with it because they were saying something about they could have called it on other people. So that adds even another piece of craziness to it. But enough of that. Panthers at Bengals. I felt sorry for Joe Burrow. They was beating on him like a rag last week.
Well, the guy I really feel sorry for.
Panthers.
The guy I really feel sorry for is PJ Walker. Quarterback PJ Walker, Temple product, starting his third game since Baker Mayfield got benched and coming off a win over Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, a division rival, completed 19 passes for a career high 317 yards. He did throw a pick six, but he also threw a 62-yard dot that traveled the entire 62 yards in the air to DJ Moore to tie the ball game and put his team in position to win with the extra point. Unfortunately, as we just talked about, Moore lost his head, pulled off his helmet, whether technically he was out of the end zone or not. In celebration, he pulled off his helmet, which made the extra point try an extra 15 yards long, and kicker Eddie Pinheiro missed it. Now, there's been arguments by people on television about whose actual fault it was for losing the game. Some people are saying that the kicker should be able to make a 40-something yard kick. If they needed a 40-something yard field goal to win the game, he would be expected to make it. So if the extra point gets pushed back because of penalty to that same distance, he should be able to make it. But let's face it, this is a guy, Eddie Pinheiro, I looked it up. This guy has only missed one extra point the entire season. A regular extra point, I believe, is a 33-yard kick. Okay? He's only missed one of those. So hypothetically, if DJ Moore doesn't take off his helmet, Pinheiro makes the kick and they win the game. But then you got to look at Pinheiro, who had an opportunity to win the game with a 30-something yard kick to win the game in overtime, and he missed that too. I can't defend you, bro. He had another chance to win the game. This game was against Atlanta also, by the way, another division rival. So the Panthers lost that game. Now, as far as the Bengals concerned, not a whole lot to say about the Bengals. I was just praising them the other week, but obviously we know they tried to correct their offensive line problems in the offseason, but things still ain't right. Against the Browns last week, who had lost 4 games in a row, by the way, the Bengals couldn't run the ball at all, and Joe Burrow got sacked 5 times. He threw a pick, and he lost a fumble. Bengals aren't looking good right now. Although I think they'll be home next week against the Panthers, I believe they will bounce back and beat the Panthers. So I'm going to take the Bengals in that game. But things are not looking good for the Bengals right now.
What's the Browns' defensive end?
Myles Garrett
had a day.
Yeah, they wrecked the Bengals offensive. I think Joe Mixon might have ran for barely 30 yards the whole game. Barely.
Joe was getting and been studying up a little bit on Pro Football Focus in the way they kind of rate things, and they talk a lot about how they sacks versus pressures, and they give a lot of point value to pressures.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, they were saying something about this, some stat where quarterback ratings drop like 30 points from pressure on average. Yeah. So he was a wrecking ball and having a great day. And there's no more questions about PJ's arm strength, right? Those questions,
right?
They've been settled at this particular point. PJ can pretty much put it wherever you want him to put it. So that's going to be good for him. Fantastic. All right, you're going with the Bengals, however, eh?
Yes.
Colts at Patriots. Bias plus score 6.3 favors the Patriots. What do you think about the Colts' new quarterback?
Well, I don't know if Sam Ehlinger is going to be the Colts quarterback of the future, but he's the quarterback of the near future, which will be the rest of this season. Yeah. And I got to say, in this game last week, he did not stink.
Okay.
It wasn't horrible. It was his first real NFL start, but he has been on the team for a couple of years now. So he knows the system. They know he knows the system. They trusted him with the playbook and with the play calling and being able to execute a game plan. So that's why they decided to sit Matt Ryan down and go out and finish the season with Sam. So like I said, he didn't stink it up. The problem for the Colts is they can't rely on their running game anymore. Jonathan Taylor seems to be a shell of himself compared to last year. I think a lot of it has to do with their offensive line. They can't seem to run block anymore. I don't know what the heck is going on, but it doesn't look like things are going to change anytime soon. So I don't know what to expect from the Colts, but it doesn't look good. As far as the Patriots are concerned, I'm trying to remember the last time I called a win over the New York Jets a big win. But the Patriots pulled off a big win over the red-hot New York Jets last week. I say the Colts go up to New England and they get handed their heads. Patriots are going to win that game.
So Jonathan Taylor, a shell of himself.
Yes.
To quote Mr. Dickerson here. And it just reminded me, Ben, and we talked about what was it a playoff game when Wentz was there and
Yeah,
they lost that game
yeah.
and they had no run game. They could not run the ball. And it seems from that point on, I haven't seen them with a serious run game from Jonathan Taylor, and we know he was injured. So that always plays a part. But man,
I'm starting to wonder if he's 100% healthy.
that's a question.
But I'll tell you, when you watch him, the holes just aren't there anymore.
Well, even for the best of them, if they're hitting you behind the line,
that's what I'm saying. That's the same as not opening a hole. If you're letting defense penetrate,
they're meeting you at the handoff.
yeah, that'll never work. I don't care who you are.
So yeah, so much of that is I think a part of that. But long story short, the Patriots still, fundamentally sound team, fundamentally sound. So not a big move up between the two quarterbacks, but not a move down as they move toward Max. So Patriots are favored in this particular situation. Packers at Lions. Last plus score 4.2 favors the Packers. In a way, Benny, this kind of is an intriguing game for me.
Yeah.
Because the Packers, as I remember, they're like right in the middle in terms of all their rankings. And the Lions are at the top and the bottom in terms of.
So the Packers are what are they, between 11 and 20 in points for and points against?
I do believe. I'm gonna take a quick look on it, but yeah, I think that's kind of how it is, man. Let me take a quick look. But you know that the Lions, again, they were in the top 10. Detroit is number 9 in scoring, right? And
Right.
Detroit is last in defense.
Right.
The Packers, Green Bay, let's see, make sure I'm looking at yeah, that looks good. 26th in scoring. So they're on the low end of scoring.
Oh my goodness.
But
It's
16th,
worse than I thought.
16th in defense, giving up 21.6 points per game. So that's kind of what I meant. They're actually a little lower. I was giving them a little bit more toward the middle. They're a little lower toward the bottom, third of the, or I say the bottom 3/4 of the.
I don't know. You may have just influenced my pick with those numbers. I don't know.
And then out of all of that craziness, the Packers are plus 4.2. But again, Packers are minus 3.5 net points, and Detroit's minus 7.4.
Okay.
So it's the stinky and the stinkier. In terms of net points, it's all negative. Those are two negative, net point teams playing each other. But one has Aaron Rodgers and the other has Goff. Swift is back, right?
Yeah, he's back.
Oh man,
they're easing him back in though. He only had like 6 or 7 carries.
Okay. It's a Philly guy. So go ahead, tell us what you got on this.
So the Packers had to go to Buffalo last week, where nobody gave them a chance. Probably because there was no reason to. The one good thing they were able to do was concentrate on what they do best, which I got on them about the week before. And what they do best is run the ball. Okay, A.J. Dillon and especially Aaron Jones and their offensive line can still run and run block and get the job done there. Unfortunately, that's not enough to beat a team like the Buffalo Bills, obviously. If you watched the game, you saw how that went. Now, Detroit hosted Miami's high-powered offense last weekend, and they actually found a way to put up some points themselves. They didn't rack up a lot of yards on the ground, but they did score 2 rushing touchdowns. That was Jamal Williams, not DeAndre. And Jared Goff had a good statistical game, but that horrible Lions defense didn't do them any favors. Now, Yes, the Lions defense is horrible, but the Packers defense is not playing up to expectations, not even close. The offense for the Lions still has the ability to score points. And if you really look at it right now, their wide receiver core, I would say, is hands down better than the Packers wide receiver core. I'm picking the Lions to win this game at home against the Green Bay Packers.
Oh, Benny, going against AR.
Yes, sir.
I told you if AR is if his receivers start catching those balls at a decent point, it's going to be trouble. But this is going to be interesting. Packers at line, potentially intriguing. 4.2 favors the Packers, but Benny's going with the Lions. Oh man. What about the Bears? What about the Bears? Dolphins at Bears. Dolphins are coming up to Chicago. There's only a bias +1, Benny, favoring the Dolphins.
Ooh,
One silly little differential there. So that's pretty close. Dolphins at Bears, two quarterbacks who are establishing themselves. Approximately the same amount of years in the league. Am I right?
I believe they came in the same draft. That would be correct.
Okay.
I know I've said a couple good things about Justin Fields, so I'm going to talk about Tua first. A few weeks ago, I'd look at this game and say, I'm pretty sure the Dolphins will win this game. Okay, Tua hadn't exactly really grasped this whole offense with Tyreek Hill and Waddle and all the stuff he's got going on. Plus, he had a little injury, so things were still a little questionable. And I didn't think Justin Fields was going to do anything this season. I figured he was a year or two away from really being the type of quarterback that we thought he could be when he got drafted. However, things have changed. Tua Tagovailoa, I have to say that every once in a while to remember how to say it, looked really great last week. He went 29-36 for 382 yards and 3 touchdowns as the Dolphins hung 31 points on the worst defense in the league, which would be the Lions. Those are big numbers. The problem is they gave up 27 points to that same Lions team that was shut out by the Patriots and only scored 6 against the Cowboys after coming off the bye.
Is that why the Lions have dropped in the points for category so dramatically?
Well,
those types of scores, all of a sudden you get shut out.
Yes. But the fact that they came back and put 27 on the Dolphins makes me wonder about the Dolphins, about their defense.
Okay.
That's my point. Okay. Now, once again, I have to take a closer look at the Bears. I wasn't paying much attention to them early on, but last week's game made me kind of look at them, especially how they're using Justin Fields. And here again, on the road against Dallas last week, they never threatened to win the game, but their run game was solid. They put up 240 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And Justin Fields was fairly efficient, 17-23, only 151, but 2 touchdown passes. And those scores that they got, the 2 touchdowns on the ground and one of the 2 through the air, they weren't in garbage time. They were doing over the course of the game. Okay. Now, everybody's praising the Dallas defense, me included. Okay. But the Bears found a way to get in the end zone and make the game somewhat interesting. Okay. I don't think the Cowboys ever felt threatened, right? They had a big enough lead throughout pretty much the whole game. But Justin Fields is starting to get command of this offense, bro. I'm telling you. They figured out that they can't live off of one running back, so they're using Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery at the same time. They're splitting the carries. The run game is becoming pretty efficient. They're run blocking really well. They're starting to protect Fields. They're using him in the run game. The Bears don't look too bad. They're coming on a little bit. Now, that being said, I don't think they'll be good enough to beat the Dolphins, but they host the Dolphins this weekend. I think Miami goes in there and outscores them. This could be a pretty intriguing game. I don't know. You might want to pick this one. I don't know.
Well, one of the things that intrigues me is when you have a score like this, close to even.
Yes.
In terms of these two teams, and
you have an offense that's improving and a great offense with a defense that's a little shaky.
Well, I have a new moniker for the Dolphins. I'm calling them 49ers East.
You keep taking all your running backs, right?
Dude, they got the coach, our offensive genius.
Yeah.
He's down there. They asked him about the trade deadline. He's like, there's a deadline? Oh, I'm terrible with
that. Well, I better make a move.
I better do something. And they wound up taking 2 people in the last 12 hours.
2 good ones.
They're gearing up. I'm hearing people talk about them like they're gearing up for a Super Bowl run. They ain't talking about the future. They talking about right now.
I heard the coach during an interview say, we are not afraid to talk about Super Bowls. You know how teams go, well, we're not really going to talk about the S word right now. We're going to take it one game at a time, try to make it into the playoffs, try to get a home field advantage. You know what I mean? That's what most teams say. This guy says, oh, we're not afraid to talk about the Super Bowl. That's gutsy, man. That's gutsy.
Can you imagine when he was the offensive coordinator? I mean, he's bringing that Niner tradition and all of that. And
as he should, yes.
And his personal creativity, and ability to look and handle and think about these things, he got through the Tua injury thing pretty unscathed.
Yep.
I say this much for him because I was a little worried about him for a hot minute there. I wasn't quite sure how that was going to work out for them. But I'm calling them 49ers East. And they got weapons. There's no question about them. They have the #1 receiver in the league, yardage wise. Okay.
By far, I believe, yardage wise.
Yeah. Why his name is escaping me? Please help me.
Tyreek Hill.
The
cheetah.
The cheetah. Yeah. So this is going to bring up a conversation, Ben. I want to initiate the thought.
Okay.
You can begin to figure out how to disagree with it.
Okay.
The importance of the tandem, a quarterback and the receiver connection, that's special. And when I'm looking across the league, when I see tandems, I see successful offenses. And when tandems aren't there, I see trouble. Let me throw out the Arizona Cardinals as an example of no Nuke, no DeAndre Hopkins, and DeAndre Hopkins. I believe that's a tandem. Okay. And so I'll throw out Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams. That was a tandem. It ain't there. Now, the team
but both guys got to have juice, though.
Well, that's what makes it a successful tandem. It's not.
That's why Devontae's kicking himself.
Now the team that's going against that to some degree is Kansas City. Okay, Tyreek's gone, tandem's gone. Maybe the tandem all along was really Kelsey anyway. You know what I mean? That's the guy that if he's there, it makes everything work. That's why people say if Gronk was there, the Tampa Bay offense would probably work better.
I'm going to agree with you when you talk about Kansas City. I think the tandem all along really was Mahomes and Kelsey. Tyreek was like an X factor, which there's several good tandems, and those teams have an X factor. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Gabriel Davis is the X factor. So yes, I agree with you there. Kansas City, I would say, was Mahomes and Kelsey. That tandem is still alive.
We're going to talk a little more about tandems as maybe as a subject in and of itself.
Okay.
So I look forward to that segment. So here you go. Let's get back to the story at hand. The bias plus score 1 favors the Dolphins. Who you got?
And we are going with the Dolphins.
You're going with the Dolphins.
Although this one's a little scary for me, I'm going to admit that.
Hey, I compared Justin Fields to Hurts. And I said if they can do the same type of stuff that the Eagles can do, and with Justin Fields, I don't know if their receiver core is up to it, but and I don't know if their line is up to it. Eagles got if championships are built on lines, the Eagles have a really good shot. Vikings at Commanders by a split score of 9.3 favors Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. I had to explain to someone my thoughts on Kirk Cousins, how I have that positive, negative thing, because I'd say he's the king of mind farts, he has these great stats, but he's my money-making hero.
Yeah, but come on, man, you gotta be honest. You don't feel like him now the same way about him now, do you? Not this season.
I think he has a powerhouse team around him. So when you put a powerhouse team around him,
give the guy credit. I don't care who you got around you. If you make a lot of mind farts, you're gonna mind fart good or bad.
It's timing. It's about timing, Ben. It's about timing. He's still known as a guy who fails in prime time.
Okay, stop right there. The games the Vikings used to find a way to lose last year, this year, they're finding a way to win those games. Things have changed, brother. And things have really changed, not only for the Vikings as a whole, but also for Kirk Cousins. Against the Cardinals last weekend, the defense stepped up big, and Kirk Cousins led big drives to cash in on the scores that won the game for them in a back-and-forth shootout. So as things were going back and forth and the Cardinals were giving them all kinds of heck, as soon as Kyler Murray made a mistake, Kirk Cousins cashed it in, and he did not make mistakes of his own. This definitely was a game that last year they would have lost. And instead, twice in the second half, he came through with big drives to lead them to scores to win this game off of turnovers that their defense got for them. So I would say Kirk Cousins I'm not going to say he's completely shed that whole, mind fart thing. But right now, I think I read they lost a good number of games. I want to say 5 or 6 games last year by a 7 or 8 point margin. And this year they have won 5 or 6 games by that same margin. Take that into consideration when you talk about Kirk Cousins. Now,
the Vikings,
those are facts. Those are numbers.
The Vikings, I think we said they were 5th in net points.
Mm-hmm.
That's plus 7.7. So the numbers are what they are. The numbers are what they are. The question is, when it comes crunch time, if you have to put it in his hands, how many of those scores that they had were running scores versus passing scores? I know he had a few passing.
Well, I would venture to guess that they were more passing because Dalvin Cook isn't exactly lighting it on fire. He's been good, but he's had better seasons.
What's their backup's name? Madelman?
Madison.
He's the one who had the good game.
Yeah, well, he always has 1 or 2 good games when Dalvin Cook gets hurt.
Yeah, he was just on Good Morning Football. He was an interesting guy. But okay.
Yeah, I thought maybe he might have gotten picked up in the trade deadline, but they'd be crazy to let him go.
Yeah, you need him because again, Dalvin Cook gets hurt.
Right.
That's a solid backup. 9.3 is a pretty hefty bias plus. The Commanders are trying to get their act together. You're going to go with the Vikings?
Well, Taylor Heineke wasn't great against the Colts last week, but he made a couple of nice throws and he scored through the air and he scored on a running touchdown too. So they pulled out a victory against the Colts, but that ain't really nothing to brag about. So yeah, I'm going to take the Vikings.
That ain't nothing to brag about. Raiders at Jaguars. We've been talking about the Jaguars again, living off those first few wins. Bias plus score 3.4 favors the Jaguars, and also living off the fact that the Raiders just ain't getting it done. Where are they at here? Las
Bro.
Vegas, 20th place at minus 1.6 net points. So Jaguars are in the positive, they're in the negative, and they're about 2 points. They're 3 point net points apart, 3.4 net points apart, favoring.
I can't remember. I think, did I take the Raiders to win this game last week? I was 9-6, by the way, last week, so I'm still on the positive wins and losses on my picks.
Yeah, we went. The bias went 60+% last week, also.
Yeah, I picked the Raiders to beat the Saints, and instead the Saints shut them out.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
And Josh Jacobs was coming off like a career day. This is unbelievable, man. Talk about Jekyll and Hyde. The Saints defense is Jekyll and Hyde. The Raiders as a whole are Jekyll and Hyde. It's crazy. I would never bet money on or against the Raiders. They're too, it's too volatile. Doesn't make sense. Against the Saints, they couldn't run the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. They continue to be crappy on defense. If Josh McDaniels isn't on the hot seat officially, I'm putting him there. Okay. This guy has not proven to me in any way, shape, or form that he should be a head coach. He should be calling Belichick up, seeing if he can get his job back.
Well, I think there's a vacancy for offensive coordinator. They don't have one.
It should be, because they don't have one. It's like your quarterback. If you got two quarterbacks, you don't have one. If you got 2 or 3 offensive coordinators, you don't have one. That's their problem, but that's the Patriots. We'll talk about them later. Now, the Jaguars wasted a career day by Travis Etienne. 24 carries, 156 yards, and a touchdown. This guy was injured all last year. Came back this year, lost his starting job, got his starting job back, played so well that the guy that was starting ahead of him went from being his backup to getting traded to another team. Okay. Travis Etienne, keep your eye on him in fantasy. If probably he's already picked up by somebody. I doubt if you'll find him on the waiver wire. The guy's hot. They lost their 5th game in a row. And unfortunately, they lost it to the sorry behind Denver Broncos, which is crazy. Basically, what killed them is red zone turnovers. Yeah, I know. It's insane. Fumbles, interceptions. They're a young team. Dougie P seemed to have them on the right track, but mistakes, bro. And like we talked about turnovers, if you give it away more than you take it away, you're going to be hard pressed to win games. So that being said, I don't know what the heck to do with this game. I really don't. I don't think that the Raiders can stop Etienne, but I don't think the Jaguars can stop Josh Jacobs. The question is, I don't even know what the question is. I have no clue on this game.
Let's put it in perspective again. Okay.
All right, give me some numbers. Sway me.
All right, let's put
help me out. I need help.
All right. The Las Vegas Raiders offensively are ranked 12th. They're scoring 23.3 points per game.
But they just got shut out.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
As a matter of fact, well, yeah, I'll say yes to that and leave it at that for right now. Now,
right.
Offensively, the Jaguars, where are they at? Jacksonville. Oh, yeah. Jacksonville was up there, right? Was that points?
They score.
Jacksonville is 20th.
Okay.
All right. So they're scoring 21.5 points per game. So where did I say Vegas was? They're 23.3.
Yeah.
Jacksonville 21.5. So here's where the separation comes. When you just gave up 24 points, you tend to drop. So now Vegas is 25th giving up 24.9 points per game. And Jacksonville is 10th, giving up 19.8 points per game. So they're not too far apart offensively, 23. And what did we say? Jacksonville was 21.5. So they're about 2-point differential offensively. The big difference is defensively, where Vegas is 24 and Jacksonville is 19. So that's about 5-6 points there, 5 points. So the biggest differential is on defense. And again, are the Raiders going to come out and give up points the way that they gave up points last week? That's kind of the question. If they can.
Okay, I got it.
All right.
The Jaguars will beat the Raiders, and the Raiders will fire Josh McDaniels.
You get all your wishes in one time, eh?
As soon as he gets home and gets off the plane, he'll be fired. Take the Jaguars.
Take the Jaguars. Oh, Benny, let's go back real quick. Vikings. I know they were already favored, 9.3 bias. We talked all about Kirk Cousins, but they were on that last day of free agency. Didn't they pick up TJ Hawkinson from the Lions?
Big pickup.
Now Kirk got a tight end.
Pickup. Now here's the thing. Let's talk about that real quick. Some people that play fantasy are really excited about this. Okay. They've been holding on to TJ Hawkinson. He had one monster game, and he had a couple of pretty good games so far this season. But going to the Vikings, a team with a quarterback, Kirk Cousins, who made Irv Smith Jr. a viable pickup in fantasy, okay? A guy who kept Kyle Rudolph's career alive, so much so that when they were done with him, Tampa Bay picked him up to try to replace Gronk, okay? Now Hawkinson, who's young and a really good tight end and blocks well too, is going to Kirk Cousins. This could be a big deal for Minnesota. And it could be a big deal for people who have Hawkinson in fantasy.
Okay. All right. There you go. Wanted to add that there. Let's jump back to where we were, or where we were going, actually. So you already said you're taking the Jaguars, right?
Yes, sir.
Bam. Let's move to the Chargers. Chargers at the Falcons. With the run game, as Benny talked about, the bias plus score 2.8 favors the Falcons. That means the Chargers have really been struggling a little bit more than what I think we expected. LA Chargers are 27th in net points at minus 3.6.
The Falcons are favored in this game?
Hey, Atlanta is 16th at minus 0.6.
Okay, 2.8 is not a big bias, but okay, go ahead. Give me that again.
So Atlanta net points is minus 0.6. The Falcons, the Chargers are 27th at minus 3.6. So that's a 3-point differential right there. So apparently the Chargers are probably favored in the turnover differential, which would mitigate that down to a 2.8. As I look at the turnover differential, I see where's the Falcons? Atlanta 0.1 plus 0.1.
Okay.
And
Chargers are minus.
See the Chargers are plus 0.3.
Wow, barely.
Yeah, 0.2. So that makes a difference. That's why it's 2.8.
They're basically zero on board then. So, wow. Okay. This is another scary game, especially with the Falcons being at home. Now, the Chargers are coming off the bye. They have to go to Atlanta. Hopefully, they use the extra time during the bye to come up with something to improve their run defense. Their defense has not been good against the run, and the Falcons' strength is the run game.
They're 27th in defense, the Chargers, giving up 27 points per game. They're 31st, rather, giving up 27 points per game.
That's not good. That's not good. Gee whiz. Crazy good battle last week when Atlanta hosted the Panthers. Crazy game. We talked about it. They were put in a position to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat because of a bonehead mistake by wide receiver DJ Moore. That could have been a mistake, or maybe wasn't a mistake, but anyway was deemed as a mistake, which put the Carolina kicker in a precarious position, which put the game into overtime. Then they got another second chance when the Carolina kicker shanked a gimme field goal. Not to say that they didn't win the game, but damn. I mean, they basically had lost that game twice and ended up winning. Now, I don't want to say that to say that Atlanta's not good, because guess what? With that win, I believe they are in first place in their division. I'm pretty sure, I'm almost positive they're in first place in the NFC South, ahead of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I can't talk bad about them. Marcus Mariota is some kind of miracle worker. I don't know how he does it, but the Chargers, a team that I picked to beat the AFC West, a division that I picked to be the best division in football, and a lot of other people did the same thing, and they are now laughing at themselves for doing so because of the terrible way the Denver Broncos are playing and the disappointing way that the Chargers are playing. This thing is getting crazy, man. I don't know what to say. This is going to be another scary game.
Let me give you some more scared factors real quick.
Okay.
Defensively, right?
Yeah.
Defensively, Atlanta is 29th.
Right.
Chargers are 31st.
Oh, God. Okay, you know what?
Wait.
I needed to hear that. Okay.
Offensively, the Chargers are 11th.
Right.
And Atlanta's 6th.
Right. Insane. But I'm going to go with the Chargers coming off the bye.
Okay. Going with that bye concept, eh?
Yeah, 2 reasons. Number one, their coach does a lot of dumb things during the games, but he's a pretty smart guy. I think he's going to have some kind of, and he's a defensive guy. I think he's going to have a wrinkle to at least try to slow Mariota and that run game down. And number 2, Justin Herbert should really get things going now. I'm pretty sure Keenan Allen will be back. Mike Williams will be out, but Joshua Palmer should be back, so they won't miss anything in the run game. Their tight end, Jason Everett's been playing well. And Eckler, who I talked about weeks ago being on the side of the milk carton, Eckler is back, man. Eckler's been going crazy his last few games. So I'm going to take the Chargers.
Going against the bias, taking the Chargers.
Yep.
All right. Well, they better do better than 27 points per game that they're giving up now. They better do better than that, or they won't be victorious. All right. We have an NFC West battle. Seahawks at Cardinals. Bias plus score 4.9 favors the Seahawks. And Ben, if I was to think about a tandem in terms of the quarterback and a receiver for the Seahawks, man, I don't know if I'd go with DK or with Lockett. But the way Lockett had troubles early and connected with his quarterback late, and the quarterback went up to him like, "Don't worry about it, brother. I got it."
That's your tandem.
Man, you think that's the tandem right there?
DK is the X factor.
Okay, all right.
That's the way I see it.
All right, there you go. Well, 4.9 is the bias plus score of that favors the Seahawks in this situation. And then on the other side now, we have the tandem, the just restored tandem with DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray at quarterback. So that's a tandem. That's what was it at one time? What was it? 11 out of 14. He had gone to him like his first game back or something.
Yeah, and I said something about that last week about him going to Hopkins almost exclusively.
Yeah, you were pretty negative about it.
Well, I didn't think that was a good way to be. I mean, it's not like he doesn't have other players that can play. I know their run game is down a little bit. They're missing Connor. Benjamin's been playing pretty well. But in the passing game, you got a really good guy who can move the sticks in Rondale Moore, who's got speed and can get open. And he wasn't using him. Well, that changed this week. He did, in fact, use Rondale Moore. In fact, I didn't start Rondale Moore on one of my fantasy teams, and I lost because of it. If I had started him, I would have won.
Wow.
Rondale Moore had a big game, okay? But that being said, let's talk about this game coming up. So last week, the Seahawks beat my Giants. I'm not mad at them. I've been marveling somewhat at what Geno's been doing. And they did what they were supposed to do. They took advantage of 2 fumbled punts by the Giants. I saw a funny thing on Facebook where a guy's watching the game and he's screaming and cursing at the TV. And he's talking about the guy, Richie James, who fumbled the 2 punts. And he's saying, get him off the team. Don't even let him get on the plane. The guy's going bananas. He's ripping his hair out. It's crazy. It's funny. Anyway, 2 fumble punts. Geno cashes them in, made some really nice throws, both to DK and to Lockett, just like he's done basically all season. And I actually think I heard Geno's name mentioned in the MVP conversation.
Geno's in the top. I think he's like in the top 5 in quarterback ratings. I'll take a quick look and give you that if I can.
Okay.
But yeah.
Meanwhile, Kyler Murray came out firing against Minnesota. That might have been the most fun game to watch last week. In fact, when it comes on NFL Network this week, if I can catch it, I'll probably watch it over because I was switching around and watching Red Zone and stuff. So I want to watch this game in its entirety. But he went toe-to-toe with Kirk Cousins for the most part. But Cousins got the upper hand when Kyler threw 2 second-half interceptions. A weakness. Not good for Kyler. That's a game they could have easily won if they did not turn the ball over. And I have to put that one straight in Kyler's lap. Now, he's got the Seahawks coming to town next week or this weekend. If he can hold down the turnovers, I think Kyler's got the firepower to beat the Seahawks. But again, this could be an intriguing game candidate for you. It's one you should probably look at. What's the bias is 4.9. That's not that close, but it's pretty close. Wow. I'm going to go Cardinals. I'm going to take the Cardinals at home.
Going to take the Cardinals, eh?
Yeah.
Going against that running back, Mr. Walker III. Oh, man, if there was a guy that I really don't know if I would want to go against right now, and he's the hottest running back in the I don't know if he's hottest in the league, but
he's pretty hot.
He's pretty hot. And let me say to you, here's your top 5 quarterbacks ranked by quarterback rankings, QBR, not regular ratings, but QBR.
Okay.
Number 1, Tua Tagovailoa. Josh Adams is number 2.
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen is number 2, right?
Right.
Actually, yeah, 78.7 for Tua, 76.7, tied with Patrick Mahomes at 76.7 QBR. Number 4 at 66.6 QBR, Geno Smith.
Wow.
Ahead of number 5 at 63.7, a lower QBR, Lamar Jackson.
Wow. Now, let me say this, though. Josh Allen would have been higher, but he threw 2 picks in the Packers game. So I'm sure that pulled him down a little bit.
I'm sure. Yeah, that all gets taken into account. Yeah.
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 Wow. That's great for Geno, man.
I crazy. If you go by quarterback rating instead of QBR, Geno's third.
Wow.
Tua and Mahomes.
Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible, man. This dude was an afterthought. He was looking like a career backup. And I was thinking the other day when they were playing the Giants, I remember he was really good coming out of college. If I'm not mistaken, I would have to go back and double check. I think he was a first-round draft pick.
I believe so.
He played for West Virginia. He had a dynamite last year at West Virginia. Geno Smith was on everybody's radar and just never seemed to live up to it. But he sure is right now. He sure is
that's
right
for
now.
sure. That's for sure. Geno, let me see if I can see here what he was as how he was taken. Entry 2013 draft, round 2, number 39 overall to the Jets.
Okay, round 2, number 39 overall. That's not bad.
No, not at all. Not at all. You know, so you got that situation with the Seahawks where they have this top flight offense and the serious running back, and I mean Walker is in the conversation now for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, out of nowhere.
And he reminds me of Beast Mode in that he ain't no small guy.
No, he's not.
He looked like a power back with speed, you know. So it's an interesting scenario there. And when I was looking at the bias or the intriguing game last week, it was the Giants and the Seahawks. And one of the things that I thought about in that game was Saquon versus Walker. You know,
okay.
2 really good running backs, and I was kind of expecting. I didn't focus on it so much in the write-up. In any event, Seahawks at Cardinals. You're going with the Cardinals in this situation.
Yes, I am.
All right, Mr. Dickerson. What do you got for the Rams at the Buccaneers? Bias plus score of 6 favors the Buccaneers. That just shows you how bad the Rams are playing.
Wow. 2 really disappointing teams. When you want to have a conversation about who's the most disappointing team in the NFL right now, these 2 teams are probably going to come up along with the Denver Broncos and probably, I don't know, I think the Chargers are a little disappointing. I'm sure there's somebody else out there that fits the bill in that conversation.
Oh, yeah.
The Rams have the Super Bowl hangover. The Buccaneers, I'll tell you the truth, I don't know what the heck is going on with these guys. I really don't. But let's talk about the Rams first. They took a 14-10 lead over the Niners into halftime. I thought this was going to be a really rock'em sock'em second half in this game. I believe the Niners were going to win. I picked them to win. 14-10 at halftime, I'm thinking, okay, we're good to go. They'll come back. They'll pull it out in the second half in a really good game. Guess what? Rams had to eat 21 unanswered. Niners went to work on them boys. So bad that Nick Bosa was quoted as saying he thought they gave up midway through the fourth quarter.
Really?
Yes.
I hadn't heard that. Wow.
Yes. Yes. With about 7 or 8 minutes left in the game, he's talking about they're running the ball on 3rd down instead of really going after getting first downs. Yeah. Not good.
Just run this clock and get this thing over with.
Yeah, right. Now, oh my God, the Bucks. They lost their 5th game out of their last 6 games. Who would believe it? They were just talking about Tom Brady hasn't lost 3 games in a row since his first year starting. Now they've lost 5 out of their last 6. The offense continues to look bad, but what's really scary and a bad sign is the defense seems to be slowly falling apart. Now, they have had some injuries. I'm not sure if all those guys are going to, especially in the secondary, I'm not sure if those guys are going to come back this week or not. But the front 7 is starting to weaken also. They lost to Baltimore last week. The Ravens averaged 7 yards per carry on the ground. 7 yards per carry in one game. That's unheard of on a Tampa Bay defense. That's crazy.
Now, is some of that because of Lamar running?
Oh, that includes Lamar, yes.
Yeah, when you throw Lamar's numbers in there, it kind of skews the average yards per game.
Yeah, but they
running, I understand,
but they're not leaning on Lamar like they used to. Kenyon Drake's getting off. Gus Edwards is getting off. They're spreading it around a little bit. It's crazy. So, and besides that, I mean, you just don't hear numbers like that. I don't care what team it is against the Buccaneers. Run defense was their strength. You know, that was their strength. So I don't know if they're going to be able to fix this or not, but I really don't like the Rams. I really don't. And I think Brady, 2 weeks off of his little divorce thing and all that other crap, will get it together with Godwin and Evans. Fournette will run just enough to get them by. And I take the Buccaneers to beat the Rams at home.
Yeah. I mean, the Rams are just, they're living at the bottom of the rankings offensively, 16.9 points per game. Tampa Bay's putting up 18.3. You know what I mean? They're doing a little bit better, both on defensively than they are offensively. Tampa Bay, 6? They're only giving up 18.9 points per game. They're right behind the Niners.
Right.
But the Rams are giving up 22 points a game. They're 18th.
They look a mess.
Yeah, so I can understand what you're saying there. Wow,
they're not tackling well either. They really look bad.
Okie dokie. Well, Benny, that finishes up the 4:00 group of games for the NFL. What we have next is Sunday Night Football. Now, I kind of thought of this as maybe an intriguing game because of the clash of styles.
Right.
Titans at Chiefs. Bias plus score 7.9 favors the Chiefs. But, man, Tennessee, man, 8.9 points per game. Scoring. Going up against the number 1 scoring. I mean, really, Tennessee's defense only giving up 19.7 points per game. They're in 9th place.
That's good.
Especially when Kansas City is giving up 24.6, they're in 23rd place.
Right, and they're not good against the run.
Well, they're going to see plenty of the run, as you say. Go ahead and tell us what you think about this.
This is another scary one. A lot of scary games this week. So Ryan Tannehill was hurt last week. Rookie quarterback Malik Willis had to start in his place. I know you were a little excited about that. Unfortunately, Malik wasn't able to show you very much, but he didn't have to. The game plan obviously was to give it to Derrick Henry very, very often. He had 32 carries for 219 yards and literally ran the Houston Texans into the ground. Now, that powerful run game and that really good, tough defense is going to be really tough for the Chiefs to handle. What the Chiefs don't want is for the Titans to get out to a lead on them. That could be a problem Not saying that Mahomes can't bring his team back, but I don't know if the Chiefs defense can hold the team back enough not to allow them to be able to go toe to toe with Mahomes. Now Tannehill practiced today in limited fashion, but today is Wednesday, so he's got 2 more chances to get in full practice. I'm pretty sure Tannehill will start. Not that he's a big threat to beat the Chiefs with his arm, but they really got Derrick Henry going, man. This could be a tough one, especially, like I said, if the Titans get off to a fast start. But the Chiefs are coming off the bye, and Andy Reid is one of the best head coaches in the league coming off the bye. He even
ain't it?
Excuse me?
Historically,
I was about to say, he had that reputation with the Eagles.
Yeah.
So that alone has me picking the Chiefs. That, they're home, and yeah, they're coming off the bye. They should be prepared. Now, I don't know if they can stop Derrick Henry. They can probably only hope to contain him, but that has been done in the past. So we will see. But I'm going to take the Chiefs.
Going with the Chiefs, yeah. That's going to be Sunday Night Football, so we'll get a chance to see every play and not just have to jump around as we do with Red Zone and really kind of get an idea of who's doing what. If you go to Ben and Barry on football, I literally put out the Pro Football Focus rankings of offensive lines and defensive lines in the NFL. So this is where that information could be helpful. We'll see. Anyway, Titans at Chiefs. Bias plus score 7.9 favors the Chiefs. Ben's going with the bias for Sunday Night Football. You know what that leaves, right, Benny?
What's that?
Monday Night Football.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Scary stuff. Ravens at Saints. Bias plus score 5.1 favors the Ravens on Monday nights.
It's that Jekyll and Hyde defense of the Saints.
Yeah.
But the Ravens had a really nice balanced attack last week against Tampa Bay. That was the right formula for them. I believe that's always the right formula for them, especially with the amount of work that Lamar gives them on the ground as well as through the air. They're a team that the more balanced they are, the better they are. They threw the ball 38 times for 238 yards and 2 touchdowns, and they ran the ball 33 times for 231 yards and another touchdown. That's the Baltimore Ravens that are really tough to handle. Now, the Raiders played the Saints last week, and they had no answer for them. Andy Dalton started the game, even though Jameis Winston's healthy again. He was a healthy scratch in this one. Dalton justified that start. He completed 22 of 30 passes for 229 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's really good line for Andy Dalton. Real good line. 2 of those touchdown passes went to Alvin Kamara, who basically caught short balls and ran them in spectacularly on a couple of them. He also ran in a score from scrimmage. He looked really, really good. And here's the crazy part. I talked about the Jekyll and Hyde defense. The Raiders didn't cross the 50-yard line until there were 2 minutes left in the game. They never crossed midfield until the very end of the game. That's how good the Saints defense was. Scary. Saints are at home. Ravens coming in there. Another tough one, but I'm going to go with the Ravens.
Well, again, 2 teams not far apart offensively. Baltimore scoring 26 points a game, and New Orleans 24.9.
Right.
So they're only a couple points apart in terms of scoring. But then in their rankings, both of them dropped down defensively. New Orleans a bit more than Baltimore, however. Baltimore is at 20th and New Orleans is at 28th. So I'm a little surprised about that Baltimore defense, and really surprised with this New Orleans defense. Expect them to be a little bit better. But hey, somebody got to be down at the bottom. But they're hanging out with the likes of Atlanta and Arizona and the Chargers, the New Orleans Saints are. So I thought about this as a potential intriguing game.
Okay.
Because you know, Saints coming off of a shutout, and then going up against Lamar. So it's still in there as a possibility. I haven't chosen yet. I do have to admit, I kind of lean toward the games where you can see the whole game. You know what I mean? It's a little more fun to write about a game that people can actually see. The whole nation can see at the same time.
Right.
As opposed to like we can see certain games in other locations or seeing other games and all of that kind of stuff, unless you got special football packages and stuff. So there you go. Hey, I'm still having problems with my NFL Plus, man. I'm not happy.
What?
Yeah, man.
I was thinking about getting that too, because one of the guys on my team's got it. He's been raving about it. He's like, man, I never knew about the all 22. He's like, this is awesome. And he's got it on his phone and he's showing me all this stuff. And I was like, man, I need to get that.
The phone works. I can get on it on the phone.
Okay.
I can't get it on my Fire Stick.
That's crazy.
When I had the previous iteration, which was Game Plus, whatever they called it before it went to NFL Plus.
Yeah.
I watched it on. That's how I watched it. Was on my Fire Stick.
Yeah.
There's no place to sign on. Like there's no little login button, and then you go to log in, and it starts offering you to buy the packages. And I'm like, I got the package. I go over to the information and it says, yeah, you have the package, but it won't let me log in. So
it's not for mobile use only, is it?
No, it's supposed to be on all your devices, from what I understand.
Wow.
I talked to Amazon, and they couldn't figure it out, and they told me to talk to the NFL, and they don't really have a service number. You know what I mean?
They have the
everything.
Talk to other subscribers.
Yeah, that community crap and all that.
Yeah.
Man,
get out of here.
Get out of here with that mess. But in any event, Ravens at Saints, bias plus score 5.1 favors the Ravens, and you're going with
the Ravens.
The Ravens going with the bias. All right, Benny, that wraps up week 9 for the Bias Plus report. Oh, wait. We always have one other scenario that
Who's
we
the
have
buster?
Back. Oh, no. You mentioned it already. The bye team.
Yeah, we talked about the bye teams.
I include them in my graphics now. Browns, Cowboys, Broncos, Giants, Steelers, and Niners all on the bye. All right, now we can get to.
Yes, sir.
Talk about
the damn thing.
Scary team. Unfavorable bias plus score of 7. So they were not favored. And
no,
I
picked the Raiders.
Raiders were favored by 7. They put up 24 nothing shutout.
Yep.
Bias plus buster score of 31.
Smacked them.
There was one other game last week. I think it was the Monday night game that I thought they were going to
Bengals Browns.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be the bias plus buster there, and they just missed it by a few points.
Okay.
But in any event, congratulations to the New Orleans Saints.
Good job by the Saints.
NFL Week 8 bias plus buster of the week with a bias plus buster score of 31. Yeah, when we're looking for you to lose by an average of 7 and you win by 24, that's big time. That's big time. All right, here we go, Benny. Let's take a quick look at the Ben and Barry on Football Facebook page, just for a few newsworthy type items that we just definitely don't want to go by without giving some thought and mention to John McVay, 1931 to 2022, general manager for so many years for my beloved 49ers. During those years where we won those 5 Super Bowls, he was the man. He's the guy that picked Joe Montana out of Notre Dame, for example, and was the father of or grandfather of Sean McVay.
I'm not sure. Grandfather, I think.
Yeah, I think it's grandfather. So sad news, 90 some years old, and we lost a great one there. Walter Payton passed on November 1st, 1999. Anything you want to say about Sweetness?
Oh, too much to talk about Sweetness, man. Great running back. All-time leading rusher until Emmett broke his record. There was something on TV recently where Emmett was I know what it was. I want to say it was Jay, Will, Keyshawn, and Max, the show that comes on in the morning.
I know.
They had Walter Payton's son on.
Oh, did they?
Yes, and he talked about his dad, and he talked about how close he was with Emmett, and how Walter, before he passed, asked Emmitt Smith to look out for his son. Nice. And that he actually has been doing that.
Hey, see, that's what it's about, man. Football is life. Football is life. Well, it's also life. When we say life, there's plus and minuses to it. We lost Adam Zimmer.
That's Mike Zimmer's son, right?
Yeah, he's like 38 years old.
Young, yeah.
Yeah, he was a young guy. No cause of death yet given. But again, two big time losses in the football world there. So just want to kind of give that quick mention. It was a hectic day for the trade deadline. Got a little chart here. 12 players traded, and the last most traded, and it's like the last 24 hours of the deadline. So as you can see, the Dolphins, again, they picked up linebacker Bradley Chubb. That's why a lot of people said they look like they want to win now. And the Dolphins also picked up my running back, Jeff Wilson Jr. from the Niners. That's why I call them 49ers East. Bears picked up Chase Claypool, wide receiver from the Steelers. And we talked about the Viking getting T.J. Hawkinson. Calvin Ridley, who can't play quite yet, going to the Jaguars. Chase Edmonds going to the Broncos. So they're picking up another running back for the Broncos. The Bills got Nyheim Hines, running back, which I understand. I think they might have been inspired by the Christian McCaffrey pickup. They wanted a running back they can throw to, and apparently he's really, I think you mentioned he was a good.
But they have a running back they can throw to. Some of these are very curious moves. Some other ones I think are nondescript moves, and there are some, quite a few, that are really good moves. I could go down this list and tell you what each one is if you want.
Well, at least give us the really good ones.
Okay, so Bradley Chubb leaving the Broncos and going to the Dolphins is a big move for the Dolphins. That's a great pickup for them. And again, I just got finished talking about their defense and the points that they're giving away. So they get themselves a big-time linebacker there that's going to help improve their defense. That's a good move. Chase Claypool leaving the Steelers. I don't think he wanted to be there. He wasn't having a real good season. And I think the Steelers are tired of his shenanigans. Now he goes to the Bears. Maybe that changes his career path. He may end up being a number one wide receiver for Justin Fields in the future. Could be a good move.
Well, let me say this. When I heard about him, the big question was for his size. I think he's like 6'4". He doesn't have a lot of wins in one-on-one contested catches.
That's not his thing. That's not his thing. I don't think usually a guy that size, they talk about them having a really big catch radius. He doesn't have a really big catch radius, if you ask me.
Okay. All
He's
right.
not great on 50-50 balls. He doesn't fight for stuff. I don't know what the issue is, but he has the potential to be a really good receiver. Sometimes guys need a change of scenery to bring out the best in them. Maybe that's what will happen for him. TJ Hawkinson was a good move for the Vikings. I don't know why the Lions were willing to give him up. I know they got some draft picks. I think they got a second and a third, a second in 2023 and a third maybe in 2024 or something like that. So I'm sure that was a value move for the Lions, but he should work wonders for the Vikings offense. Calvin Ridley, funny story. Calvin Ridley right now is suspended. He was suspended for gambling, and the game that he got caught gambling on was the Falcons versus the Jaguars. He now leaves the Falcons to go play for the Jaguars.
That's good. I like that.
How crazy is that? Chase Edmonds is the odd man out with the Dolphins. Mostert took his job, and now they pick up Jeff Wilson. No more room for Chase Edmonds, so they let him go to the Broncos. He'll sit between, well, I don't know. He's not going to have a lot of success there because Melvin Gordon's still going. Javonte Williams is hurt, but when he comes back, he's probably going to take over again. And Latavius Murray is playing well. There's no room there for Chase Edmonds. I don't understand that move at all. I really don't. Jeff Wilson, we just talked about, went from the Niners to the Dolphins. That's a big deal. He'll probably back up Mostert. He'll obviously back up Mostert. In fact, him and Mostert will probably be a 1-2 punch the same way they were on the Niners. How crazy is that? Minus Elijah Mitchell.
Yep.
Nyheim Hines going from the Colts to the Bills. The Bills just drafted a running back who's like a scat back and catches the ball out of the backfield. In fact, they lined him up in the slot against the Packers, and he had a couple of big catches. So I don't know where Nyheim Hines fits there. That's another head scratcher. Zach Moss leaves the Bills and goes to the Colts. So basically, the Colts and the Bills traded running backs, Nyheim Hines for Zach Moss. The Bills didn't like Zach Moss. They got the rookie boy. That made Zach Moss the number 3 dude, so they let him go and bring in Hines. Again, a head scratcher. The Jets let go of Jacob Martin, who's a pretty good D lineman, and I think he's a pretty good pass rusher. He goes to the Broncos. Broncos defense is already good. He'll be a plus for them. Chiefs let go Rashad Fenton, who's a decent D-back, but he's a veteran. I believe he plays corner. They got a couple of rookie corners that they're real happy with, so they kept the young guys and let the old guys go. So that's what that is. That's a youth movement move. But the Falcons always need defense, so they could take a veteran like Fenton. Falcons let their safety go, Dean Marlowe. He goes to the Bills. Another veteran player. The Bills will probably use him for depth. And the Commanders let go William Jackson III. He goes to the Steelers. I'm not sure what exactly to say about that one. I have no clue on that one. That's it.
All right.
That's your run.
There's your rundown. That's what you get when you do all that fantasy. You can just run through people's names like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pat McAfee. The reason that I
added, this is good.
Go ahead. Tell me why you think it's good. Go ahead.
Well, now, and when I say it's good, I mean it's interesting.
Well, this guy's saying he spent $4 million with the NFL to promote them, right? To have access and promote them, and they won't let him use the NFL logos and stuff.
Right. But did he say why they said they wouldn't let him use it?
He didn't get, that contract is deep. He didn't go into the depth of the contract, but he changed the he changed the graphics. I'm going to click on it. Let me just see if it comes up.
I saw it. It looked like a 4-year-old did it.
That's what he did. That's what he did. He changed the graphics, and then here it is.
Yeah.
He's trying to promote Monday Night Football, and they won't let him use images and the things.
Yeah, but he didn't even call it Monday Night Football. He called it Monday Evening Football. And he doesn't call it the NFL anymore.
He calls it American Professional Football League.
Right.
That's what he calls it. It sounds like one of those teams or one of those leagues from Europe where they have the European American Football League.
Yeah.
So, but on top of that, Benny, he said maybe I should start to be a little more to talk a little bit more about the things that hold the NFL accountable and not just be promoting the NFL all the time.
That sounded like a threat.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And he put that out there for sure that he thinks that that might be. It says here, he also issued this warning to the league. It's been great doing business with you. I'm happy we have covered your league in the way we have for the last few years. I'm appreciative of the league and everything is done. I don't think we've really touched on many subjects we could have dabbled into, and I think we'll do that this offseason for sure. Sounds like Ben and Barry on football, don't it? So we ain't making no money from the NFL, and we ain't paying no millions of dollars, but he wants to talk about things like life insurance, CTE, the concussions and all of that kind of stuff. So very interesting. The guy who was a former player paid millions into it, and they won't let him use their intellectual property. I don't know what he could be using. How do you promote a game that you can't use anything from the game? You can't put a clip up,
Yeah, I got to find out more about this. He's got a really popular show. Aaron Rodgers is on there every week. Every week.
Like a resident. He's a resident.
He's like the resident. Yeah, right. Exactly. He talks about a number of subjects. He brings on a lot of different players. He lets them talk, but he pretty much has stayed away from the negative stuff as far as I can tell. The real negative stuff, the stuff that the NFL wouldn't want him to talk about. So I don't know what it is that he talked about that has them saying, we don't want you using our stuff, because it was all good before. This is kind of out of the blue as far as I can tell. And I don't know what it is that he did or said that caused this to happen. But I'm hoping that we'll get a little bit more clarity about the situation in the near future.
All righty, there we go. All right, Benny. If I had anything, I'm fried. I couldn't give it to you.
I know. This was a good one. PTTFL playoffs coming up this Sunday. It's going to be tournament style. First, second, and third place will get cash prizes. My team is the number 3 seed.
Wow.
So we got a shot to do something. I don't know what's going to happen. People have been talking about the PTTFL saying we're down. We don't have the number of teams that we used to have, but I say 8-man football is still alive. Week after that, we have a tournament down in DC. The Flag Football Players Association is giving it. It's basically a state tournament or regional. So it'll be mostly Maryland and DC teams entered, but we will be there. I'm pretty sure NWO, who's also from our league, will be there. I'm not sure if the UT Cobras will be there, but for sure the Noles will be there. So go Noles.
Is this something Blade Brown is producing also?
No, he's not producing this, although he does work for the UFFL. It is UFFL sanctioned. Okay. But his big thing right now that Philly Bowl's over will be nationals.
Okay. All right. Now, there you go. Do it again.
Go Noles.